used to getting on the soapbox. Where should I start? I think I'll start at the beginning by explaining a little bit of who I am and why I'm here. My name's Dr David Nicholl. I'm a consultant neurologist, work in Birmingham, and I'm here in a personal capacity. I'm not representative of any trust I work in, such as University Hospital Birmingham or Sandwell in West Birmingham. So you know where I am, but personal view. I'm also secretary to the Association of British Neurologists, so that's the specialty society for neurologists across the country. And they're the specialists that you might see if you had problems with, let's say, very problematic migraine or multiple sclerosis or epilepsy or Parkinson's disease, those sort of things, basically. So I'm not a surgeon. Don't call me a brain surgeon, because believe me, you don't want me opening up your head. And the background to this relates to Operation Yellowhammer, and you will have read the reports recently about the plans that there were in the event of no-deal Brexit. And I got involved this would be in January, because I'm with the Association of British Neurologists, is very closely linked to the Royal College of Physicians. Now that is by no means a bunch of radicals, okay? The Royal College of Physicians were set up by Henry VIII over 500 years ago, okay? But they know a few things about healthcare. Basically in January, the Department of Health approached a variety of Royal Colleges, including the Royal College of Physicians, and just asked for volunteers to help with no-deal planning. And I put up my hand, nervously, on the basis that someone's got to do it. Before I saw anything, I actually took advice from my medical defence organisation, because I was slightly worried that potentially could I be advising about treatment which was inferior to what is in existence, which I suspect probably gave the Medical Defence Union a few things to think about. And then it would have been, I think, about 13th of March, I got an email saying, strictly confidential files, are you willing to accept? I accepted. You then get sent the password, look through the files, and at one level I would say it wasn't as bad as I thought it could be, but it was bad enough. And essentially, in fact, all of this is in today's Sunday Times. You were basically given an Excel spreadsheet and given a series of drugs where there were already there were recognised problems of stockpiling. Now, I think it's really important we don't scaremonger here. This is not every drug under the sun. This is a very short, in the case of neurology, so I'm just talking about my specialty. I don't know, all of medicine. I can only reflect my own specialty. So around about 20 different drugs, some of them tablets. One of them was an intravenous product, so not something you get in boots at the chemist in Bromsgrove. I became troubled, in fact, because there's one patient that sticks in my mind, and I can mention this because she's allowed me to speak about it. It was a patient of mine who had very bad epilepsy. I've been a consultant 17 years, and I've known her all that time. I first met her 17 years ago, at that time she had very bad epilepsy, was being admitted to hospital frequently, and it took a period of about 3 or 4 years to stabilise her treatment, and she was on 3 different drugs for her epilepsy. And actually I discharged her from follow-up almost 10 years ago, and she was fine. And then she turned up in clinic saying, one of the drugs that I'm on for epilepsy has been changed to a different brand because of shortage problems, and I ended up in hospital in status epilepticus, which is the most serious form of epilepsy. There's about, people could die in status, so it's as bad as it gets, basically. And that particular drug was one of the ones I was aware that there was a problem with stockpiling. So I was faced with an ethical dilemma about what to do about this. So I advised, and you basically were advising on essentially a traffic light system. So red was the most serious, essentially fly stuff in. Amber was more also serious, but maybe not life-threatening. Okay, and green, there wasn't a problem. So the idea was to design a plan of mitigation for in the event of no-deal Brexit. And I thought I'd dealt with that list, and then the following week, this was the week before we were due to leave in March, okay, I got another file with another list of drugs for patients with neuropathic pain. And I was thinking, how many more files am I going to get, given that we've got 8 days to go? And in fact, it was worse than that. They changed the password. Okay, so I got this at 5:30 on a Thursday night, and I'm thinking, I've just lost 16 hours until that civil servant gets in, until I can advise them. It was incredibly stressful just dealing with it. And in fact, I only know this now. I personally got very stressed in the whole situation. Ended up having a bit of a cancer scare, going to my own GP, and had investigations for that. And I'm sure it was all just anxiety related to the planning process. Ironically, I was actually speaking at the conference at the Royal Society of Medicine on whistleblowing the very day. I was about to be a whistleblower, meeting the Newsnight team in the cafe to plan how to leak stuff, because if you look on the General Medical Council website, which is the regulator for all doctors, it is quite explicit that if you have issues of patient safety concern, you should raise them. I'd already approached a variety of bodies and wasn't getting anywhere, which is why I went to the press. In fact, Newsnight offered me anonymity, which I declined because there was only one other neurologist that had access to the files, and I knew the first thing that would happen, there would be some kind of witch hunt to try and identify who it was. So I was like, game on, I'll take. What I didn't realise was, of course, as soon as this appeared on Newsnight, then there was a smear study, a smear report appeared in the Mail on Sunday, accusing Newsnight of scaremongering. And what I hadn't realised, of course, this was during the Conservative leadership campaign, and Matt Hancock was going to be wanted to be leader. So there was an absolute uproar of this. It took the BBC a week to publish the online story, because there was a massive effort basically criticising every line of that Newsnight report, and nothing was found, basically. And there it was. And then, of course, at the same time, I was actually approaching the Royal College of Physicians saying, you should be speaking out about this. And there was a reluctance among the Royal College of Physicians at that time, because they didn't want to call scaremongering. But in fact, Bob Goddard, who's the president of the Royal College of Physicians, wrote to every single MP on the day of the vote about no deal, warning them about the very real risk of it. So they did do things, it just maybe wasn't as public as you would be aware. And then, of course, Yellowhammer happened. And it basically replicated but multiplied what I'd been saying back in early April to be true. So this wasn't scaremongering. What happened after that? First thing that Michael Gove said, this is the worst case scenario. Well, one, I knew that was a lie, because I was in the room when it happened. I read the report. And also, there was other stuff which isn't in Yellowhammer. In February, Stephen Hammond, Junior Health Minister, reported that they were stockpiling body bags in the event of an increased mortality rate from a no-deal Brexit. Okay, so obviously that is the worst-case scenario. And I have to say, the last 4 months, and there may well be people who, I really don't give a monkey whether you voted Remain or whether you voted Brexit, what political party you're from, but the same argument I've had every single time on this subject is people say, it's fake news. I helped write the report in mitigation. Okay, this is a government report. I know, but I know some in the NHS. They voted Brexit. They tell me it'll be fine. Have they read the report? So I find it a strange, bizarre state that we can be against the idea of big government and yet completely believe big government about a secret report. It got slagged off as scaremongering, got slagged off, Yellowhammer got slagged off as being scaremongering. It was out of date when it was published, August. And this is fundamentally unhelpful. And actually, believe it or not, it gets worse. Okay, so in the light of Yellowhammer, I contacted the Sunday Times. I sent them the same files that Newsnight had been sent, on the basis that let's see if anything's changed since I leaked the stuff in March. And in fact, I can give you the exact plan of what has changed since March. That's right, absolutely nothing. Nothing, okay? The President of the Royal College of Physicians, basically the Royal College of Physicians confirmed in today's Sunday Times that nothing has changed. No one's contacted the Royal Colleges. So let's think about this, okay? Let's say we all believe in no-deal Brexit. I know that's a tough gig in this audience, but let's theoretically what you would do is you would speak to the experts, you'd speak to the Royal Colleges, you'd listen to their advice, you'd design a plan of mitigation, you'd then test it out, okay? See if it worked. If there were problems, you'd fix them. This is what they've done. Nothing, okay? So, and it's also worse than that with prorogation. I'm going to explain this because I've got a couple of friends of mine from the Netherlands who are very welcome. Prorogation is a process by which, so if Parliament was between sessions, they would maybe prorogue for a matter of 4 or 5 days. But now, what's happened is by proroguing, nothing will be interrogated. All the stuff I've told you about, the different parliamentary committees cannot bring in the government to ask why. Okay. And indeed, the Health Select Committee have been asking these questions for the last 18 months and have been told everything's fine, okay? And yet I've told you nothing has changed since I whistle blew in March. So I think we should be very worried that actually this really is an affront to democracy. You expect your parliamentary select committees to be scrutinising your government, to be asking the hard questions, and those aren't happening. Worse than that, this morning Michael Gove was on the Marr Show and arguing that even this week, if a law was passed to block no deal, they'll ignore the law. A fundamental principle of any democracy is you believe in the rule of law. So this goes way beyond whether my patients with epilepsy or my patients with neuropathic pain can get their drugs. But we are at peace, okay? And yet we're using contingency planning as if we are at war, okay? And these plans should not be secret. And the fact that I cannot even use the names of the drugs with colleagues, with you or with anyone else that would make the plans, all the stuff recently you've seen about HRT, which is not Brexit related, but at least it's in the press. There is a debate about it. We can argue about it. And the analogy I would make, I don't know if you saw in the news about a week ago, there was a nuclear accident in Russia, and a number of people in the nuclear power factory died, and the doctors were very upset because no one had told them that it was a nuclear accident. And we are in exactly the same position, in that we are acting like Russia, where this is being kept as a state secret, when it should be absolutely transparent so that we can make proper plans. So whatever your view is about Brexit, I don't think that secrecy is the way forward. I don't think that, let's face it, taking back control was about taking back democracy and election, avoiding unelected bureaucrats. And now we have an unelected bureaucrat, Dominic Cummings, who's now threatening every Tory MP who votes against no deal next week with deselection. This is truly very scary times. But it's scary for healthcare professionals, it's scary for patients, and it's really, really important we call people out on this. And that is why I'm here.